There are moments in every life when the weight of disgrace feels unbearable, when the whispers of others seem louder than the voice of truth, when shame clings to the soul like a heavy fog. You have known the sting of humiliation, the quiet ache of being misunderstood, cast aside or ridiculed. The world, in its cruel way, delights in reminding us of our frailties, amplifying our failures, and stripping us of dignity. But the story does not end here. No valley of shame is so deep that it cannot be lifted, no mockery so sharp that it cannot be silenced. There is one who sees beyond the scorn of men, who lifts the fallen and restores the broken. The hands that shaped the stars do not tremble at the sneers of the proud. He does not abandon those who trust in him, nor does he leave his children in the dust of disgrace. There is a turning of the tide, a moment when the lowly are raised and the humbled are clothed in honor. What men intend for shame, he transforms into strength. What the world casts aside, he calls precious. Your humiliation is not your destiny, nor is it the final word over your life. It is but a shadow, and shadows flee before the light. There are few burdens as heavy as shame. It clings to the soul, not merely as a memory, but as a force that seeks to define a person. Shame whispers falsehoods, telling you that your past disqualifies you, that your failures are permanent, that what others think of you is the final verdict. Yet, the truth is something far greater. The power of God is not only in forgiveness, but in transformation. He does not merely erase shame, he replaces it with glory. He does not simply cover disgrace, he turns it into honor. Life has a way of wounding, of leaving scars that seem impossible to heal. Perhaps you have known what it is to be ridiculed, to be cast aside, to be marked by humiliation. Perhaps there have been moments where it felt as though the world had closed its doors, as if you had been left outside while others walked in favor. The weight of such moments can be crushing. But consider this, the greatest stories ever told are not of those who were always honored, but of those who were once despised and then lifted high. It is no accident that restoration is a theme woven deeply into the fabric of existence. The caterpillar, wrapped in darkness, emerges as a butterfly. The winter, barren and cold, gives way to the brilliance of spring. The night, no matter how long, always yields to the dawn. In the same way, the story of your humiliation is not the conclusion of your life, but merely a chapter. God is in the business of reversals, of turning the rejected into the chosen, the lowly into the mighty. When he restores, he does not return things to what they once were. He makes them even greater than before. There is a profound difference between human redemption and divine restoration. People may forgive, but rarely forget. They may allow a return, but not without a lingering stain. But when God restores, he does so in such a way that the past no longer holds power. He does not merely bring you back to where you were before the shame. He lifts you higher than you ever imagined. The very things that once brought disgrace become the testimony of his grace. The mockery of men is transformed into the evidence of his favor. If you find yourself in the midst of humiliation, do not despair. The hand that shaped the stars is not weak, nor is his purpose for you abandoned. The moment of your lifting is nearer than you think. Hold on, not to the wounds of shame, but to the promise of restoration. There will come a day when those who look down upon you will be forced to lift their eyes in wonder. For the God who restores does so in ways that cannot be ignored. Pain is not purposeless. Though the world may tell you otherwise, though suffering may seem cruel and without meaning, there is no wasted wound in the hands of God. He does not allow his children to walk through humiliation without reason. He does not delight in their sorrow, nor does he leave them in despair. Instead, he refines them, shapes them, strengthens them through the very pain that sought to destroy them. It is an unsettling truth that greatness is often born in suffering. The man who has never tasted rejection who has never been humbled, who has never felt the sting of disgrace, is often unprepared for true honor. It is those who have walked through the valley of humiliation who can truly stand upon the mountain of elevation. The fire that was meant to consume them instead purifies. The hardship that was meant to break them instead builds them into something unshakable. Consider those who have walked before you, figures in history, in scripture, in life itself. Was there ever one truly great who had not first been brought low? Was there ever a man of wisdom who had not first known foolishness? A leader who had not first felt helpless? A victor who had not first tasted defeat? The pattern is unmistakable. Those whom God raises high are often first cast low, not as a punishment, but as a preparation. The breaking is not destruction, it is the making of something greater. You may find yourself asking why. Why must the road to honor be paved with disgrace? Why must the path to victory lead first through hardship? The answer is not always immediately seen, but it is always there. It is in suffering that character is forged, in hardship that faith is proven, in humiliation that dependence on God is deepened. Without these trials, without these wounds, the soul remains untested, unready for the weight of true glory. What humiliation seeks to do is weaken you, to make you cower, to make you believe you are less than what God has called you to be. But God, in His infinite wisdom, uses that very humiliation to strengthen you. The wounds that were meant to destroy you will instead be the very marks that set you apart. The more the world has sought to bring you low, the higher He will lift you when the time is right. And when that day comes, you will not merely rise, you will stand firm, unshaken, because the fire that was meant to consume you has instead made you strong. So do not despise this season of hardship. Do not believe the lie that this suffering is meaningless. It is not the end, it is only the beginning of something greater than you can now see. The pain you endure today is the foundation of the strength you will carry tomorrow. And when you are lifted, you will not be like those who rise without struggle. You will be one who has walked through fire and emerged refined. There is no wound quite like the sting of mockery. To be laughed at, belittled, or dismissed by others is a deep pain that many carry in silence. It is one thing to fail, it is another to have that failure paraded before an audience, to have one's weakness used as entertainment. The world is merciless in this regard. It takes delight in tearing down, in exposing flaws, in ridiculing those who do not meet its shallow standards. But what the world does not understand is that the very ones it mocks are often the ones God chooses to honor. The ways of heaven and earth are vastly different. The world exalts the strong, the wealthy, the powerful, those who fit within its mold of success. It celebrates those who can force their way to the top, often at the expense of others. But God does not look upon men as men do. He is not impressed by status, nor does He measure worth by outward appearances. Instead, He sees the heart. He lifts up the humble, He strengthens the weary, and He takes the ones the world has cast aside and sets them upon thrones. There is a reason why those who are mocked often find themselves later honored. It is because God does not merely watch humiliation, He answers it. When the world seeks to bring low, He raises up. When men ridicule, He places His hand of favor upon the very ones they scorn. He is not blind to the jeering, to the insults, to the false accusations. He is not indifferent to the suffering of those who are rejected. And in His perfect time He brings a reversal so profound that those who once mocked are left speechless. History is full of such reversals. The child called a fool becomes a leader of nations. The one laughed at for dreaming becomes the one whose vision changes the world. The one scorned for faithfulness is later celebrated for unwavering integrity. What men see as foolish, God sees as potential. What men discard, God redeems. When He honors a person, no amount of mockery can undo it. So if you have been mocked, if you have felt the sharp edge of ridicule, take heart. You are in the company of those whom God has prepared for something greater. The laughter of men is brief, but the honor of God is eternal. The voices that seek to shame you today will be silent when He lifts you up. What matters is not what the world says about you. It is what God declares over you. And He has called you chosen, beloved, and worthy of honor. It is one of the greatest lies ever whispered into the hearts of the broken, that their story is over, that the humiliation they have faced is the final word over their lives. How easy it is to believe that failure is final, that disgrace is permanent, that the opinions of others have sealed one's fate. But the author of your story is not the world, nor are your enemies the ones holding the pen. Your life is not dictated by the sneers of men, but by the sovereign hand of God, and He is not finished with you yet. There is no darkness so deep that His light cannot break through. No pit is too low that He cannot lift you from it. No shame so heavy that His grace cannot erase it. If you find yourself convinced that your best days are behind you, that humiliation has ruined your future, know this: you are standing on the verge of a divine turnaround. The very things that seem to be your downfall are often the very places where God is at work, rewriting the story, turning the tide, shifting the course of events in ways you cannot yet see. Life is filled with moments where all hope appears lost, the prisoner forgotten in a cell, the outcast wandering without direction, the dreamer abandoned in a pit. All seem to have reached the end, and yet, time and again, these very moments become the prelude to something astonishing. What seems to be the end is often just the waiting before the breakthrough. The door that was slammed in your face will not remain shut forever. The humiliation that weighed you down will not be your identity. God delights in turning disgrace into destiny, in transforming rejection into redirection. A turnaround does not always come as expected. It does not always arrive in the manner or the timing we desire. Sometimes it is slow, a process rather than a sudden shift. Other times it is swift, a moment of divine intervention that changes everything in an instant. But whether through steady restoration or sudden reversal, one truth remains: your current suffering is not your conclusion. The same God who allowed you to walk through humiliation will be the one who leads you into honor. The waiting may be painful, but it is never wasted. It refines, it strengthens, it prepares. There is no turnaround without a trial, no triumph without a test. And when your season of restoration arrives, it will not simply return you to where you once were. It will place you in a position you never imagined possible. You will not just recover, you will rise. You will not just be restored, you will be transformed. The story that seemed to be marked by shame will instead be remembered as a testimony of divine faithfulness. So do not close the book on yourself when God is still writing. Do not accept defeat when your victory is still ahead. Your humiliation is not your final chapter. It is only the setup for a greater glory. The turnaround is coming, and when it does, it will be unmistakable. So do not close the book on yourself when God is still writing. What feels like an end is only the setup for something greater. Your humiliation is not permanent, nor is it the final word over your life. The same God who allowed the trial will be the one to lift you beyond it. The voices that mocked you will fall silent, and the shame that sought to define you will be replaced with honor. Hold on, for your divine turnaround is near, and when it comes, it will not simply restore you, it will raise you higher than ever before.